is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Limited Resources. This is episode number 570. My name is Marshall. I'm one of your Limited Resources, and joining me on the line all the way from Denver, Colorado, it's Luis Scott-Vargas. Luis, how are you? Been cubing it up?
Oh, yeah. The current vintage cube is a ton of fun, especially now that they replaced the arts. And I've been having a great time. I think Standard's in a good place. Like, Magic's just a lot of fun right now.
It really is. I've been doing a ton of cube drafting myself. In fact, I did my next video for CFB is going to be a vintage cube, and it's pretty good. And the last video I did, by the way, has been getting some really funny comments because I made the mistake of disparaging Kazandu Nectar Pot or whatever it's called.
Oh, yeah. I actually even heard about this.
Yeah. My opponent played two of them against me in a deck that I was playing mill. So I was like, oh, I am good to go. And like 5 turns later, I was completely dead. So, and it was because of the Kazandu Nectar Pots, I will have you know as well. So I learned my lesson. Don't talk trash about Nectar Pot. Just let it sit there and don't mess with it. Don't mess with the Nectar Pot. We've got a great show this week. We're going to be talking about Commander Legends. We're going to be giving you a primer for anybody who's planning on playing in that. And given that Luis and I are not really Commander players at this point, we figured we'd bring in the reinforcements, right? We needed a little help here to help you decode this set, figure out what was going on for it, because there's a lot going on the limited stuff, but then it also folds in these Commander aspects. We're going to be talking all about it, but we needed help. So we reached out to our friend Shivam Bhatt. And Shivam's here to help us get through. Shivam, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's super weird to be listening to a podcast and being able to talk back to it and have you actually hear me.
Yeah, you can normally yell at me in the car, right? Like, no, that's a B-, but nobody responds. Here, I'll actually say, is it though? And we'll have to flesh it out.
Yeah, if you were to argue about Felidar Retreat with Marshall in person, now's your chance.
Oh man, I've been listening to those shows while I've been walking my dog, and it's been a lot of fun. So thank you so much for having me here for this very unusual draft format.
Yeah, it's funny. I've been friends with you for a while now, and I'm kind of in my head like, how could I get him on the show, right? Because like there's this thing where it's like, well, we got to have you come on and give the listeners something that they couldn't get, right? But that's also alongside the primary goal of the show, which is like help you improve at limited. And this popped up, and you actually put out a tweet where you were like, how can I get on LR? And I was like, God, how can we? And I'm like, wait a second, because this is the perfect marriage of what you're into and what we're into, just sort of melding together. So I'm looking forward to having you on, and thanks for taking the time to do so. So before we get into the main topic, though, we got to talk about our sponsor, channelfireball.com, the place to go for all things Magic related, really anything that you need on the internet, you can find over at Channel Fireball, including some cool new stuff going on over there. They've got creators collections. Have you seen these, Luis? Did you create these?
What these are is we asked some of the awesome content creators who work with us to kind of give us their list of cards and products they think are sweet. So if you want, cube staples, Gabby's got a list. Vince Pleasant Kenobi, he's making his list full of whatever Death and Taxes or Stoneforge Mystic style cards he can fit. That sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. So that's pretty cool. And then there's the Ultimate Magic Gift Box, recently launched. The Ultimate Magic Gift Box over at CFB for the holiday season. It costs $49.99, and you get a package with Magic goodies that are typically worth around $100 or more. From there, there's 3 different versions of the box: $49.99, $70.99, and $129.99, each with a higher tier of booster boxes and promos and that kind of stuff. So you can check that out over at channelfireball.com. If you do end up picking up anything, do me a favor and use the affiliate code LR. It helps them know that we sent you over. Also, the show, of course, is brought to you by you via the Patreon, patreon.com/limited resources. We just want to say thanks to everybody who supports the show over there. It does mean the world to us. And one of the things that you get is access to the Patreon feed there, which means you get to ask questions. And in this case, it's Patreon question of the week from Paul, who says, do you see any downside to this new era of overlap cards like Mind Drain? Is anything lost when cards fit in many decks like Draw, Mill, Drain, etc.? Or does this increase the number of viable archetypes proud to be a fellow Seattleite. Thank you, Paul, and my neighbor, apparently, Paul. Luis, what do you think? Is there any downside to these overlap cards?
Yeah, there is a theoretical downside in that if everything is like that, then nothing's interesting, right? If every card works for every archetype, then it's just not going to be fun because everyone's just taking the same cards. That said, we're very far away from that point. In fact, I would rather archetypes be over-supported than under-supported. I just don't think it's as interesting when decks don't get there, when their cool builder rounds don't work. And the light touch they've had with these like mind drain type cards has very much gotten there for me. So I really like them. I do think there's a way it could go wrong. I'm not saying that would never happen, but I would rather see more rather than fewer, even if that risk is there.
Right. I suppose the other consideration would be complexity. Like they're already getting there's a lot of text on a random common, right? That isn't really, before it would be target opponent discards 2 cards. But now it's like it mills them for 2, they lose a life, you gain a life. Like there's kind of a lot going on there for commons, right? If they're all like that. Yeah,
that's part of the risk too, is that if you get too wacky with all your cards, you do need some cards that just don't have very many lines of text on them.
Right. All right. Well, thanks for the question, Paul, and we appreciate it. Now let's get into our main topic here with Shivam. So we've got Commander Legends coming out, which is the tagline for it is Booster Draft meets Commander, which is really a strange mix. I mean, these really do represent 2 kind of much different spaces, for that. That said, I think the overlap is pretty big. Shivam, do you have a feel for percentage of Commander players who are into Limited?
Well, the thing is, remember, Commander is like the most widely played format of Magic. And because of that, almost everybody who plays Commander has had some amount of Limited. And because, where do we get our cards from, right? A lot of people go to pre-releases and play the sealed, or they play drafts at their FNM and then use all the chaff to build their Commander decks from. So there's a very large overlap, I think, between Commander and Limited. And even look at Josh and Jimmy, right? Josh Lequai and Jimmy Wong, 2 of the biggest creators. Their biggest passion that isn't Commander is playing Limited. And I think a lot of us actually just really, really enjoy Draft and really enjoy Commander for very different reasons. Like Limited is the small puzzle that you're trying to solve with the cards in front of you. Commander is, I've got 26,000 cards. What can I build that is like my dream coming true?
That's right. The big puzzle. The biggest puzzle.
No, I do think that there's overlap in both. And I think and where you're building your own deck. Every limited deck you draft is different from everyone else's limited deck. And I'm not going to say every commander deck's different from every other commander deck, but there's a lot of personal touches that go in where with the card selections where you're playing cards because you like them, not necessarily just because you think they're the best. Standard, every deck is within a couple cards of each other. There's not much room for personalization. I see a lot of that in both limited and commander.
Right. Makes sense.
That's a great point.
Yeah. Now, so let's I'm going to kind of go over the broad strokes on what this set is, and then we'll get into the strategic and the interesting rules changes and stuff. So there's a few things you need to know. The draft boosters for this set will have 20 cards in them each. 1 non-legendary, rare, or mythic, 2 legendary creatures, which is important for this, 1 foil of any rarity, 3 uncommons, and 13 commons. If you get a box of these, in real life, they come with 24 boosters per box. So that means that it's the exact number for 1 8-player draft, which is, kind of the standard number. Although, you can do whatever you want. You can play sealed with it too, they said. So it's kind of, your choice on that. Apparently this is going to be available on Magic Online as well. And given the current circumstances, that's particularly relevant here. But a few of the rules, there's actually some rules changes for the way that the limited format plays out. And the first one that jumped off the screen to me, Shivam, was the difference in deck size.
Yeah. Unlike playing a real game of Commander where you would have 100 cards, this one forces you to use 60 like a standard player, which is, for all of you guys who are limited players, you're like, wait, what do you mean? Every deck's got Yorion built into it automatically?
Yeah.
So yeah, basically what this is because this is halfway between Limited and Commander, they decided the deck size need to be also similarly halfway between Limited and Commander. So really what your deck size is 59 plus your Commander or 58 plus your partner pair of Commanders. Okay. So you're either going to be drafting 58 or 59 cards to be playing with. And that's going to be different both for like the average limited player and for like me, the commander player, because I don't play a lot of 60 card constructed. So I'm always off on like how many lands are you supposed to run with that? I don't like 17 and 23 is burnt into my soul, right? Like, and so this is going to be a real trick for a lot of us to kind of balance it down to more of like your brawl deck, like on Arena or something like that, which is actually, yeah, brawl is probably the closest thing analog to this, is that you're going to effectively be drafting commander-powered brawl decks.
Okay, well, how about we don't use... I can't remember what a brawl deck is. Like, I think it's 60-card commander, or like, ish, right? But like...
Yeah, I played some Brawl back when it was on Magic Online, but then actually Boros, the legend, kind of ruined that format.
Yeah, but at any rate, these decks will be 60 cards, as you mentioned, 59 cards plus one commander, and we're going to talk about the partner mechanic in a minute. It's actually fairly straightforward here, but it allows you to play two commanders, and in which case it would be 58 plus two. Now, one of the things that you might be thinking is, well, when I sit down to draft this, if there's 8 players and there's 20 cards in each booster pack, this is going to take forever. Well, there's also a change to the number of cards you take, Shivam.
Yeah, this is a lot like Double Masters was if you got to play it in the week that it was on Magic Online. You get to draft 2 cards per pack every pick, and that's going to make it go significantly faster. Right,
so you're taking 2 cards rather than 1. So keep that in mind when you're drafting. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the rules for Commander, because for the most part, the rules for Commander are being applied to this format as well. But, you know, there's a good percentage of our audience who's probably like vaguely familiar with Commander, but maybe doesn't have a Commander deck or whatever. So what are the rules that apply here that a limited player might not be used to?
Right. So most relevantly, the idea of a commander itself. This is a card that exists outside of your deck that you can always cast as long as you have the mana to cast. And when it dies or is exiled, you have the ability to put it back into your command zone. Command zone's the area that sits outside of your deck. It's kind of like where emblems and stuff live. And each time you recast your commander, it costs you 2 more generic mana to pay. This is called the commander tax. And if you've got partner pairs, which we'll discuss in a minute, each of those individually goes up. So if you cast one partner and then later on you cast the second partner, you don't have to pay a tax on the second partner. But if these partners die, you have to pay a tax. And online, we'll keep track of this. Offline, I like to use a dice to just keep track of our commander tax.
Okay.
Secondly, commander damage, which is if you attack someone with your commander. Oh, yeah, I forgot. Your life total is changing in this too. In Commander Legends, your life total is going back up to 40, which is what the life total is for a commander deck. So if you get hit by somebody's commander specifically for 21 points of damage, you lose the game. So which is half plus 1 of your life total. And then the other important thing, and this is probably the most important for drafters, is color identity. So when you draft your commanders, you'll get to put them aside, and then you'll be drafting all the other cards you get. All the cards that you're drafting need to be in the colors that are represented in your commander's casting cost. So if you draft Grixis commander, which is red, black, and blue, all the cards that you play in that deck need to be red, black, and blue or colorless. No green, no white. This is like one of the core ideas and core identities of Commander, and it applies here as well. This is what makes Partner so strong, because it lets you add extra colors into your deck, and it lets you kind of go outside of the lines, as it were.
Yeah, and let's just mention Partner because it's come up so many times. So Partner is one of the 4 kind of big abilities in the set, and it's really simple. Partner just is an ability that a creature can have, and it says you can have 2 commanders if both have Partner. So if you get a commander and it has the ability Partner, you can play another commander if it also has Partner. And that could potentially open up the number of colors you can play, right?
Absolutely. So the thing about this set is that there were like 40-something commanders that were released and that have Partner, which means that you can take any combination of like a red card. Most of them are monocolored, just to be off the top. But they did reprint the original 15 partner pairs that were put out in like C14 or C15, whatever it was, that are dual colored. So you could have Bruce Tarl, the Boorish Herder, who is, red and white, and then partner him up with this new commander, Ghost Ramirez Di Pietro, who's mono blue, and now your deck can be red, white, and blue.
Ah, that's cool.
If you have Tormod of Tormod's Crypt and Kamal of the Heart of Krosa, you can now have a black and green deck. Or if you wanted to, you could even just play a partner by itself. Like, let's say you draft Akroma, the mythic, and she's just mono white. She's got partner pair. You don't have to use a partner. You can just have Akroma and draft a full mono white deck if you want to.
Okay.
There is no downside, though, to having a partner.
Not really.
So
it's kind of free.
It's just one fewer card in your deck. That's the only difference, right?
Yeah.
Well, and you get an additional card to cast as well from your command zone.
Right.
So I suspect, well, we'll get to Prismatic Piper in a second, but if you have a commander with partner, you're heavily incentivized to find someone to pair up with, even if it's not a big part of your deck.
Because it's
and given that
free.
There's two legends in every pack, you're almost certainly going to be able to find all the partners you want.
Right. And this is an important thing to remember, because I think, when people think about Commander, they're like, well, it's kind of a top-down format, right? You think about, well, here's the commander I want to build around, and now here's the cards that I want to put in my deck that are of that color and that go towards it. Well, here you don't get to bring your commander to the table. You do have to draft it. So when you're taking the cards out of the booster packs, you need to pick up legendary cards, and you're going to have to zero in on one commander or sometimes two, depending on if they have partner, at some point, because the other colors that you're drafting you can't put them in your deck anymore. Right. And that brings us to the card that you mentioned, Luis, the Prismatic Piper, it's called. Can you tell us what that is?
Yes, it's a 5-cost 3/3 legendary shapeshifter, and it says if this is your commander, choose a color before the game begins, and the Prismatic Piper is the chosen color, and it has partner. So what this does is it allows you to basically be any combination of colors you want without having to necessarily open a commander of those colors. And though these come in packs, you basically can add as many as you want to your deck or command zone. Like you have access. Yeah. Yeah. You're able to draft them. They're kind of like basic lands in that sense. And they are the basic land that makes commander. It's kind of like a safety valve. You don't really want to ever have Prismatic Piper as your commander, because it's just so much weaker than any other commander you could imagine. But if you need a second color for a specific reason, or a third color, depending on what you're doing, this will save you.
And I want to clarify, you said you can play any colors you want, but you meant up to 2, right?
Well, yes. If you had a multicolor commander with partner, you could add this to be your third, right. But you can have 2 Prismatic Pipers max, two commanders max, and Prismatic Pipers aren't multicolor. They can be any one color. Right.
So that way you could branch out into 2 colors in case you have the disaster scenario where you didn't get any legendary creatures, but you can also add one in, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you know how drafts are. Sometimes you pick a first pick green card, and then all the packs are giving you red cards, right? Mm-hmm. So if you end up with that, Slurk all ingesting like green partner in the beginning, and then your packs just feed you not green cards, or like, let's say something better, like Tevesh Zot, the Doom of Fools, a mythic planeswalker partner, and you're like, okay, I really, really want to use this guy, but I've been getting a bunch of jank black cards. You can use Prismatic Piper, tag it in as your secondary color, and draft other cards, and be able to at least know that you'll always be able to play the best cards you get.
That's
because
really
you can
good.
Always use this to add in that extra color.
It makes a lot of sense.
This, I think, more than anything else, this just prevents feel bads. It prevents you from being in a position. I mean, it's kind of like. And I don't know when you started playing Magic, Shivam. I don't know if you
93, 4.
Yeah. Okay. So you'll remember the experience of opening a seal deck and being like, I only opened 4 swamps, but my black cards are really good.
Yes.
This, no jokes. People might think I'm joking, but it used to be that you were restricted to the basics you opened in your seal deck, and that was really painful sometimes. So Prismatic Piper is a great addition here.
Yeah. Now this also makes the value of regular legendary creatures in here that happen to have partner go up a lot, right? Because you can just free roll an additional color if assuming that you don't find a better partner.
And an additional sea snid, a 5-mana 3/3.
Yeah, baby. Snid it up.
Now, here's the thing though, right? Like this set does have a whole ton of like legends that are not just monocolored partner pairs. So you will be able to get all sorts of multicolored, like there's one uncommon, legendary creature for every color. There's a whole bunch of, there's a cycle of 10 3-colored legends, which are one of each of the shards and each of the wedges. So you'll be able to get any combination of colors you want. Prismatic Piper is just kind of like the last resort. Like this draft just totally went left and you have no idea what's going on. But it's there if you need it.
All right, Shiva, I'm going to put you on the spot. Strategy question here. How often do you expect to put a Prismatic Piper in your command zone?
I would bet somewhere between 0 and 0 times.
Yeah, my guess is throughout the entirety of drafting the set, if you draft, 6 or 7 times, you probably won't use Prismatic Piper. You'd probably have to draft the set a lot before you ended up in a position where it was right to use it.
Yeah, this is a safety valve, right? I mean, because you have to protect against the scenario where somebody doesn't know the rules or misunderstood or whatever and just literally doesn't have a commander, because then they just cannot play, right?
Exactly.
Like they literally, you could say, I'm sorry, you don't get to play anymore. You broke the rules, right? That's if somebody paid money for this, that's just unacceptable. So you have to have that backfall in there.
Right. Like I get the feeling that somebody looked at the set at the very end and was like, okay, you know what? We need to put in just on the off chance that somebody just completely tanks this, that they get a chance. Right. And that's what it's there for. But realistically, there's so many commanders in this set. There's so many legends that I think you would be really, really
and there's
trying
2 per
very
pack.
hard to get.
And to get this, I think, pretty obvious question out of the way, just in case, you can just put legends in your deck. They don't have to be commanders.
Yeah, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep, that's true. Also, I think the incentives are going to lie with the legendary creatures, because the way I'm viewing these are like, we talk about the signpost uncommons for a given set, right? These are the gold uncommons that really like fit into their archetype super well. And these are often some of the most desirable cards to get for that archetype. Sometimes they're even better than the rares that you could get. And I think that these legendary creatures that we have here that are kind of deigned to be your commanders are going to be similar, right? They're going to set the tone in this really big, kind of all-encompassing way. And they're even better because they start in your command zone. So effectively, if you build around them, you will have access to them every game that you play. And that, of course, ups their value significantly. So, I don't think we're going to see people opening up these sweet gold commanders and being like, oh, I'll just take this removal spell. They're going to be like, I want that. I'm going to build around that.
That's the cool thing about Commander, that one of the things that I've always thought was awesome is it is about what you think it's about. I mean, yes. It's a lot about your commander. Your commander defines what cards you can put in your deck. It usually gives you a top-level view of someone's strategy. If someone says, I'm playing Zur, like you have a good idea of what they're trying to do, even if you don't know what individual cards they're trying to use.
Do people still do that, Shivam, by the way? Play Zur?
I hope not. Yeah. That guy's a miserable card.
Yeah, everybody hated that card. Yeah.
I'm not naming the most fun card in the world there, but the point is here, when you open a cool legend, you should probably take it, because not only is it fun and that's what this experience is kind of about, but also, like Marshall said, you have access to it every single game. You get to build your deck around, you opened a commander legend that really incentivizes you playing a lot of spells. Well, you can draft a bunch of spells, always have access to your commander, and your deck's going to do the thing that you're kind of hoping it'll do.
Yeah. Yep. And exactly. I think it's important to reverse engineer here as well, right? That's what the designers of this set wanted you to do. When they put a 3-color gold mythic whatever in a regular set, and you're going to draft, that actually isn't there for you. That was there for a commander player or maybe a constructed. And if you can make it work in limited, great, go for it. But you're never incentivized to slam, in a normal set, to slam like some 3-color card, right? Because there's just too good of a chance that it doesn't make it into your deck, or that you can't cast it if it does, because it requires splashing. Where here, dang well the people that made this set were like, we're going to make these sweet commanders and we want people to cast them. So you have the green light from everybody on this show. Take the dang things.
That's kind of one of the things I want the listeners to understand, is that unlike in a normal draft, Commander Legends really, really wants you to take the big, slow, dirtily super bomb, because you're going to get the chance to play it, and it's going to be rad.
Yeah, and
that's the whole point.
And I wanted to mention that. So the next thing that I wanted to say here was that you can play it however you want, right? You can do this however you want. But the way it's kind of core design is that you do an 8-player draft and then you split into 2 groups of 4 who play a 4-handed commander game, which is a common number of people to play Commander, but that affects what you just said, Shivam, in a big way. Right now we have a 4-player multiplayer game with players starting at 40 life. The end result of that is that you're going to have a lot of time to do the things that you want to do.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. Let me just use an example here. There's a mythic in this set called Phyrexian Triniform. It's a 9/9 golem. It costs 9 colorless mana to play, and it's got Encore of 12, which is exile the card from your graveyard and then put a whole bunch of things in play. And when it dies, it makes 3 3/3s. This is like the most explosive, ridiculous card there is. You would never in a million years say like, yeah, take that 9 colorless casting cost 9/9. However, in this set, this thing is going to be absurd. It's going to be hilarious, and it's going to do the craziest things possible. So yeah, you really, really want to be doing these kinds of like you want to reconfigure yourself to sit there and say, like, if I was 12 and I get to play the biggest, baddest, coolest thing possible, what do I do? Am I going to take the terror or am I taking the force of nature? I'm taking force of nature every time.
Well, to be clear, we're, and because this obviously is the mindset a lot of folks who listen to the podcast will have. We're not just saying this because it's the most fun. Like, that is part of it for sure. Drafting should be fun. Commander Legends will be fun. That's a big part to keep in mind. But also, like, strategically, if you just draft a low curve aggro deck, you're not going to do well in a 4-player game. That's just not a good strategy. In fact, Shivam, can you tell us a little bit more about strategies that get better or worse in a format like this?
Sure. So one of the things is that in Commander, one thing that's a very common complaint you'll hear in Commander is that aggro is really not where you want to be. Like, if you're drafting a really low to the ground, red-white, like, Goblin Guide type of just run people over deck, you're going to find yourself, like, because everybody's got 40 life, it's going to be significantly harder for you to get a super low fast rush going. So Commander really incentivizes if you take your mindset and shift it. So like mid-range becomes the aggro, control becomes like the mid-range, and then there's an even slower dirtle, which is like the top end of like really slow, and that's a viable strategy in this. So you have to immediately just assume that you're not going to get off to a fast start. And even if you are getting off to a fast start, it's still going to be like turn 4 or 5 before anything really starts happening. So you have to kind of look at that through that lens of like, when you're drafting cards, think about the fact that it's not going to be online for a while. So don't be afraid of taking higher mana costs for cards that you would normally be like, oh, that should definitely cost me 2. Why does it cost 5 here? It's fine. You will get around to it. You'll still be in the game by then. And the other thing is that because there's 4 players instead of 2, there's a whole lot of shenanigans going on. There's a lot of back and forth going on. It's not just, do I need to worry about what my opponent's doing, but now you have to look and say like, okay, well, the player who's going to go directly after him, if I give everybody 7 untapped lands from this instant, is that going to benefit me, or am I going to be helping people before it even gets to me, and will I die before I untap? So you really have to consider, how are the cards I'm going to draft and play impacting the other 3 players? And remember, you can also do things like impact their combats, right? So if somebody is going to combat with, if player B is going to combat with player C, and you're sitting here and you've got like Berserk in your hand, they attack, you can cast Berserk on the attacking creature to kill that third opponent using your second player's help. I mean, this is the sort of thing that in Commander you would really want to think about, is don't feel bad about helping other people, because that way you can benefit and forward your own game. Politically, you can also make them less likely to want to attack you, because like, oh, this guy totally berserked my dude to kill the guy who was trying to kill me. I'm going to leave him alone for a minute, right? It's a lot of, you have to consider the politics of it, which is a lot easier to do in a tabletop setting when you can talk. Online, it's less easy to do, but still, your actions will say a lot. Right? Like, sure, if you control magic someone's thing and attack their opponent with it, they'll be salty at you, but not as salty as if you control magic and attack them with it.
Right. Totally. And these are all the really weird nuanced things that come up in multiplayer. One of the things that I would try to do in my mind, and Shivam, correct me if I'm not approaching this correctly, but I would sit down and think less about efficiency and more about overall impact, right? Like how big of a thing can I do? You know, we're geared towards efficiency, right? We're geared towards, well, what am I getting from my mana? Right. And that's kind of the sweet spot in the 2, 3, 4, 5 mana slot or whatever. You know, we're comparing, well, I could play this 5-drop or this 5-drop. This one gives me more for my 5 mana. Here, I'm thinking more in terms of like, how much could my deck do? Right. Like, how, you know, like an example that I thought of while thinking about how I would answer Luis's question about the aggressive decks in a format like this is, well, a really simple way to look at it is if I'm playing an aggressive deck, normally I'm playing against one other player with 20 life. So it's reasonable to assume that my aggressive deck will need to do 20 damage-ish to be able to win the game. Well, if I translate that to Commander, am I really saying that I have to do 120 total damage to make the, like, I'm sorry, but your 2/2 for 2 with slight upside will never, ever, ever do that, right? Ever in any scenario. And then when you layer on the fact that that when you take a strong action, especially an offensive action, like if you attack all of your creatures at a certain player, that even if you kill them, you now have your shield completely down for the other two players who can simply decide, you want to get rid of Marshall? Yeah. Okay. Attack him. And now, you know, I'm gone. And so me going all in on an attack actually cost me the game in that scenario. So when I'm looking at these cards and these decks and stuff, I'm trying to think of, okay, if I need to do really big things, I need to pay attention to that in the draft and be focused more on like overall output rather than efficiency. So
let me ask you guys. I'll just read one of these cards out here, and I want you to give me your opinion as if it was a normal core booster set product, right? So imagine this is an equipment. It costs 4 and 2 red, so 6 converted mana cost, and equipped creature gets +4/+0 and has trample. This card has equip cost of 4. So if I said here's a 6 casting cost hammer that has +4/+0 and gives you trample, equip cost of 4, what would you give it?
Do we give the first one for free, or is that not even?
Nope, no freebies. This is free.
This is an F.
That would be an F. Yeah. There's no way you could really justify putting that card in
mana to get +4/+0.
Now check this out though. It's got one extra line of text, and that text is cascade. When you cast the spell, exile a card from the top of your library until you cast exile a non-land card that costs less, and you can cast it. So you've got a 6 mana casting cost that equip of 4, but it's got cascade. This is a huge beating in this kind of limited environment.
Yeah.
Because it costs 4 to equip, but you'll have time, and you're going to cascade into something else out of your deck, so something crazy is going to come out.
Yeah,
this is a sort of like math that you would look at an F that's an easy F. Even I would know that's an F at limit.
All right, I do have to stop you, though. That's not a fair comparison. You didn't read the whole text of the card. You left out the literal best line.
Yeah.
Right? If you want to know what grade would give a 6 mana cascade equipment, I would give that probably like a C+.
Yeah.
Like depending on what's in your deck. Like that it's way better in this format, don't get me wrong. But it's not like that it's not like it would be unplayable in a normal limited format either.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there are some real hamburgers in this though that are like you look at them and you're like, this is utterly unplayable in a standard set.
Yeah.
But in this format, because of how many players there are, it just becomes significantly better.
Yeah.
So one of the other, I guess we should talk about, since we've talked about the other 3 mechanics.
Yeah, I was going to say, so let's talk about the mechanics. So we've talked about partner, that lets you have 2 commanders. And then you just mentioned cascade. So you mentioned it really quickly there, but you reveal cards from the top of your library until you hit a spell that costs less than the spell being cast, and you get to cast it for free. So in some ways, cascade spells that are more expensive actually are better because you have a chance to hit something more expensive. You know, for your 6 mana hammer, if you hit a 5-drop, you've got 11 mana worth of stuff off of it. And when they get cheaper, it narrows down what they can hit, which can also be good because you can kind of build your deck to maybe give yourself a chance to hit certain types of cards with it. But cascade in general is an extremely powerful mechanic because a lot of times I think when people first read it, they overestimate how bad random is, where it's like, if I just showed you all the cards that it could hit and said you'll get any of these for free and you'll get the original card as well, you'd be like, oh yeah, sign me up for that. And that's how cascade usually plays out. Now there's 2 other mechanics. Shivam, which one did you want to cover first, Monarch or Encore?
So let's talk about Monarch for a second. Monarch is the one of my favorite mechanics ever. It's in Conspiracy, it's originally from. And what it is that when you play a spell that says, one of these spells will be like, when Emberwild Captain enters the battlefield, you become the Monarch. Mm-hmm. What Monarch means is that at the end of your turn, you draw a card. And sometimes this will also do things like turn on cards that care about you being the Monarch. So, for instance, this Emberwild Captain that I mentioned says when an opponent attacks you while you're the Monarch, Emberwild Captain will deal damage to that player equal to the number of cards in hand. So Monarch is like both a mechanic that'll trigger things, but also just give you card advantage. In a 2-player game, it's really, really annoying because you could set up Monarch and then just block forever, counter spells, and just keep drawing cards. But in a 4-player game, this is like a hot potato in the middle. And everybody wants to attack the person who's a Monarch because they want to get the thing. Because you get Monarch, but if you go into your attack step and you do combat damage to that player who's a Monarch, you become the Monarch. Mm-hmm. Which means that you can pass this around the table all day long. And once Monarch enters the table, it is there forever.
Right. And so somebody's going to be the Monarch for the rest of the game. It's just, it can bounce around to different players, but somebody will have it.
Yep.
Yeah, that is a really cool, like, incentive bait, kind of bait, right? It's like you get the extra card, but you have a huge target on you, right? I mean, people really, really, really want to hit you and take that away. Now, does that mean that evasive creatures, unblockable, flying, that type of thing go up in value in formats that have the Monarch?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, being able to just fly over and ping the person and get Monarchy is huge. Because you'll turn off all the things that, like, there's a whole cycle of cards in this set, a cycle of rares, which are called the courts. And each of those has a low level power that says something like, do 2 points of damage every turn. Or when you're Monarch, what happens? Do 7 points of damage every turn. That sort of thing is just like, it's huge. So you can totally turn off a lot of their abilities and powers when you become the Monarch. And being able to just walk around their thing and ping them is a great way to steal it and just turn on all of your cards. For instance, there's this legendary creature that we wouldn't really talk about because it's a rare, but Jared Carthelion, the True Heir. He's a 3/3 for 3 casting cost of red, white, green. And when he enters the battlefield, target opponent becomes a Monarch, and you cannot become the Monarch this turn. So that already, you're like, wait, what? But if damage is dealt to Jared Carthelion while you're the Monarch, prevent that damage and put that many +1/+1 counters on it.
That's
awesome.
Funny. That is sweet.
Like, that's a really, really cool card that does a really weird thing. It lets you be a literal kingmaker. You put somebody else on the Monarch, so they're politically inclined to help you. But then also, you now have a target to go and hit with your flyers or your unblockables and start pumping up counters onto your guy. It's super fun.
That's really cool. So just in your experience, if you're playing a 4-player game, if I'm the Monarch on my end step, I draw my card, how likely am I to be that by the time my next turn comes around?
Well, I mean, if your defenses are big enough, you could have it. Like if you got a couple of 6/5s or, a couple of flyers sitting around, yeah, you could probably stick around. Okay. But people are definitely going to be looking at you a lot closer. And you're definitely going to be hearing a whole lot of, what are the stats on that guy?
As you stare down at your huge hand that's ever growing.
If the player who's the Monarch dies, does the Monarch go away that way?
The Monarch, if a player dies, that Monarch token goes back to the center, assuming they didn't die from like combat damage.
Gotcha.
Like if I fireball you, the Monarch goes back to the middle, and then the first person to do combat damage gets to take it.
Oh, that's really cool. What about Encore?
So Encore is a cool ability. It's brand new for this set. Mm-hmm. And what it is Encore with a mana cost. And that mana cost is you pay that mana cost, exile this card from your graveyard. For each opponent, create a token copy that attacks that opponent this turn if able. They gain haste, sacrifice them at the beginning of the next end step, and you can only do this as a sorcery. Mm-hmm. So like in your first main, you would cast Encore to bring this creature back from the graveyard, attack everybody on the table. These things will sack themselves at the end of turn, and there you go. Now, a lot of these things have like, oh, when this dies, something crazy happens. Or there's a couple of sacrifice decks that care a lot about this that can benefit off of 4 creatures just randomly dying. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, it's a really fun, interesting political mechanic that you can use, and also just does a ton of damage right away.
Yeah, that is really cool. Like that is like one of those like you don't have to think about it, right? You just pay the Encore cost and you're like, hey, sorry, I know we had like a deal, but I have to attack you with this. It's the rule.
I mean, look, it says on the card, what do you want me to do?
Right. What do you want me to do? Exactly. Yeah. So that's a really cool one. It reminds me of Unearth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Imagine if it's
super
Unearth for everybody.
Yeah. It's like you get copies, however many there are around. So that's a cool one. And certainly a mechanic that you'd think that, like you said, Sacrifice could have a thing. But of course, if you can mill these cards into your yard and get the Encore kind of for free, then that's an extra bonus as well.
I mean, think about it. There's one of the rare Rakdos Debaser. It says it's a 6/6 for 6, which is already fine. When it attacks, put target creature card from defending player's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control forever. And then it's got an Encore of 8, which is to say you can then loot from anybody's graveyard, put 3 of their best creatures onto the table under your control.
Oh, that's insane.
It's so good.
Right. So the ones that have
the Encore costs on these cards also indicate to me that you're meant to pay 8, 9, 10, whatever mana is required. Like that's the sort of thing that is going to be happening in these formats.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree, Luis. Just looking through, a lot of them cost 6, 9, 6, 5, 7. Like
they're kind of like late game monosinks.
Yeah, they're much, but they wouldn't put that many of these that cost 6 or more unless they knew that you were going to be casting them. And the one that you mentioned, by the way, Shivam, is insane. It's Phyrexian Triniform, the 9 mana 9/9.
That one's cool.
Yeah. The Encore cost is 12. It's like, what's going on here?
Yeah, but you're getting like a million 9/9s.
Yeah. Yeah. So when it dies, you get 3 golems. So if there's 3 other players and you Encore it, you get to attack them all for 9 each. And then these Triniforms all die and you get 3 3s from each of them.
Yes.
That is absurd.
And there's a whole bunch of token themes, and it's disgusting. And there's one of the legends says tap, end the turn, which is to say, if you are encoring, ending the turn before the Encore trigger happens means that all of those guys stay in play. So you can Encore it and keep all of them because you ended the turn. It's like there's a lot of these tricks you see in Commander a lot where it's like, there was an artifact that was printed a million years ago, which says like, pay,
the sundial or whatever.
Yes,
and
exactly.
Ends your own turn.
Yeah. And it's like pay 4 and tap it, end the turn. And with that, you can just take all these triggers, which are like last until end of turn. Whoops, I ended the turn before that. Well, all the end of turn effects end. All these things are still in play.
Yeah, that's really cool. There's a common one that looks really unexciting, but might be cool. And it's right up Luis and I's alley. At least it's called Trove Tracker. It's 2 and a blue for a 2/2. It's a pirate. And when it dies, you draw a card and it has Encore 5 blue. Yeah. So how about that, Luis? You could get a divination where you pay 7 mana, get to attack for like turn 12 or whatever for 2 damage to each of your opponents, but you're probably getting a card out of it one way or the other.
Yeah, I mean, let's be real. Like, I was in for 2 and a blue 2/2 when it dies, draw a card. Yeah. So you didn't need to bribe me with the 7 mana draw 3 option.
Right. Okay, Shivam. So those are the mechanics. There's those 4 mechanics. We talked about commander rules with the starting at 40 life, the 4-player aspect of it, the command zone, commander damage, that kind of stuff. But what about somebody who's sitting down to actually draft this set, and maybe they only get to do it once or twice? What are the archetypes about in the set?
Sure. So one of the things is that because this is a set that was designed in the modern day, you were actually exactly right when you were talking about how these uncommon legends are basically your signpost uncommons. So they made 10 archetypes, and each of the archetypes both has a partner pair that will represent it, and also a dual-colored uncommon that will kind of help. So starting with the blue-white, we've got the blue-white Flyers deck. It's very standard, very expected, lots of flyer creatures. And the signpost here is Kangi Skywarden for 3, a white and a blue, for a 3/3 flying vigilance, bird wizard. And it says, whenever Kangi Skywarden attacks, attacking creatures with flying get +2/+L. And when it blocks, blocking creatures with flying get +0/+2. So this is very clearly saying, hey, put all your flyers in here.
For sure. So they kept that one simple. That, like you said, that is what we, like if you said blue-white limited archetype, I would say flyers. So I guess they stuck with it.
And then they also had a monocolor partner pair for blue and white. So the blue one is Cyani, Eye of the Storm, which is 3 and a blue for a 3/2 Jin Monk. Flying, whenever Cyani attacks, scry X, where X is the number of attacking creatures with flying. And then Radiant Sarah Archangel for 6 and a white for a 6/4. That's flying. It says tap another untapped creature you control with flying. Radiant gains protection from the color of your choice until end of turn. So basically, these are implying to you, like, okay, there's a flying archetype in blue-white. And there's a lot of really great cards like Kangi's Lieutenant, which is whenever it attacks, attacking creature with flying get +1/+1 till end of turn. This is also a card with Encore 5 and white. So a 2/3, it's a 1/1 for 3 casts, and it can Encore for 6. So when you Encore it, you bring 3 more of these out, so all of your flying creatures get +3/+3, which is a great way to kind of alpha strike near the end of the game.
And you could actually kill everybody in that scenario.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I mean, they did reprints like Warden of Evosile, which is creatures with flying get cost 1 less to cast, or like, Aven Surveyor, a good generic common that's like, when it comes to play, put a 1/1 counter on it, or bounce a creature to owner's hand.
I don't know if I'd call that generic. I'd call that exceptional.
Yeah, so flying, it does what you think it does. And in Commander, it's fantastic.
All right. What's our next color pair?
So the next one is the one that I'm most excited about, which is white-red equipment and auras, which is using the red-white commander, a dwarf artificer named Rayov Mastersmith, who's a 2/2 for 2. And whenever creature you control that's enchanted or equipped attacks, that creature gains double strike until end of turn. And this set is full of auras and full of equipment that you can do, including that red hammer I talked about earlier that's got cascade. Mm-hmm. And then you've got the partner pair here, which is Arden the Intrepid Archaeologist, which is 2 and a white for 2/2. At the beginning of your combat on your turn, you can attach any number of auras or equipment you control to target permanent or player. So this means, for instance, if you were playing a curses deck, you could use all those curses like in your normal commander, not in this set, but you could attach curses to a target player, or you could take any number of like your like Oblivion Ring type effects and move them around. Or you could equip Skull Clamp to one of their creatures.
It wouldn't work specifically with Oblivion Ring effects.
Well, maybe not.
But auras like pacifism, same kind of thought.
Yeah.
Just one thing that gives me pause about red white is I feel like equipment would be excellent because the re-equip cost isn't as big of a deal when the games are slower and like it gives you persistent advantage. Putting auras in a 4-player game just seems like a really bad idea.
It can be, but Enchantress decks tend to be very powerful because like a lot of the auras in this, I mean, yeah, okay, you're right. There's a lot of that, but the auras that they put in here specifically are pretty strong and have a lot of like immediate impact. And there are a lot of the things like the vows. The vows are a cycle of auras, which are enchanted creature with +2/+2, an ability of that color, so like first strike, trample, whatever, and can't attack you or a player you control. So you can put them on yours or you can put them on theirs and use that as a political tool to go around. But
yeah, I like that. That's a lot more like a removal spell than it is an aura. Like that, the way that's going to play out, you put that on an opposing 3/3, and then you don't have to worry about the now 5/5 for striker or what have you.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, I guess this is like maybe better for playing in like normal commander where you can protect your auras and stuff with counters better. But
Enchantress decks definitely sound like they'd be great in Commander. I just fear in limited draft. We already caution you against auras, and adding 2 more people to the table who have their own removal spells and bounce spells makes me hesitant to want to do that here.
That's true. I will give you that. I didn't think about that, but that's very true. Because like one thing is I definitely do set myself up to enchant my guy, load him up with stuff, and then watch him just eat that terror.
Which, if that's what you want to do, there's nothing wrong with that, of course. I was just trying to think through what my perception would be when I'm looking at kind of these yeah.
Oh, man. But that's a very good point. But the thing is, I think the designers thought about that because in this set, there's a much heavier emphasis on equipment than auras. There are auras, but they're mainly the idea for the red-white deck is definitely more things like Grafted War Gear or, Hero's Blade, which is like, +3/+2 that you can attach to a legendary creature for free. Or Haunted Cloak, which is equipped creature gets Vigilance, Trample, and Haste, which when you throw it onto your commander, fantastic, right? Like, there's a lot more emphasis on, I think, enchantment and artifacts and equipment than enchantments, but they put enchantment there because people like me want to play in normal commander games. And one of the things is they put a new commander in here, a Kobold warrior called Rogok, son of Rogok, which is like one of the coolest cards ever. It's a 0 casting cost 0/1 that has First Strike, Menace, and Trample, and Partner, just in case you wanted to use it as a commander. First Strike, Menace, and Trample, and you can throw all your equipment on this guy and just go ham with it, and it sounds delightful.
That sounds sweet. Do you think that they did a good enough job with this archetype to be able to actually get the job done in a game? Like we were talking about how, the decks that are designed to like curve out and that kind of thing don't really get the job done, but does the equipment and that stuff change the game enough?
I don't know I think you can use it as the major part of your deck, but you would probably also want to supplement it with other things because you're right. It does cost a lot to cast a lot of these equipments, but there's things like Champion of the Flame, the common 1/1 that gets +2/+2 for each aura and equipment attached to it, which is a really good way to just get a whole ton of damage down. And then the Armored Sky Hunter rare, which is when it attacks, you look at the top 6 of your library, get any aura or equipment from there and put it onto the battlefield. And if you put an equipment on, you can attach it for free. So that rare, if you get that, then I would definitely be trying to aim for this.
Okay.
And that Cascade Hammer, super good.
That does sound sweet. What's the next color pair?
So the next one is Red-Black Sacrifice, which is a very classic, very fantastic format. With Jury Master of the Review, red-black 1/1 for 2, which says when you sack a permanent, put a +1/+1 counter on it. And when Jury dies, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. And because it's got a low casting cost, that means you can sack it and get it back from your command zone for pretty cheaply, which means you can get this cycle going pretty regularly over and over again.
Okay.
Which is a thing you should think about because the commander, remember, you can always recur it. So you should always be thinking in your head, how often will I be able to get this commander going? Like a Chroma costs so much, like, 9 mana or whatever to cast. You're not going to be playing that card 3 or 4 times, but Jury costing 2, you're going to be able to play that 4 or 5 times a game. It'll be pretty fantastic.
Yeah, okay, that's cool.
The commanders really do scale up. So despite earlier we were like, don't put cheap cards in your deck as much, play these expensive cards. Actually, I don't think that holds true for commanders. It's a really good point, Shivam, because you get to play Jury, get some value early, replayer, and all of a sudden you probably spent as much mana and got as much value out of recasting this 2-cost commander as you would in a game where you had a 9-cost commander.
Yeah. And the partner pairs there super help out with this as well. You've got Casket the Flesh Sculptor, a 1/3 for 3, which you can tap it and sacrifice 3 other artifacts or creatures. Look at the top 3 cards of your library, put 2 of them into your hand and 1 into your graveyard. So this is feeding your graveyard for graveyard strats. This is feeding all of your sacrifices with all the various cards that you can key off of that. And it's drawing you 2 cards. So that's pretty solid. And the partner pair in red is a 6 in a red, 7/5, giant pirate named Dargo, who says, as additional cost to cast this, you can sacrifice any number of artifacts or creatures. This spell costs 2 less to cast for each permanent sacked this way, and 2 less to cast for each other artifact or creature you've sacrificed this turn, which is a fast way to get a 7/5 trample onto the battlefield.
And that actually is legit, even in a 4-player game, right? Like there's not a whole lot of great blocks that one player is going to have for that. Okay.
Yeah, and this set also has a whole lot, like all of those Encore creatures say sacrifice right when they die. And you also have a lot of treasure tokens because there's a lot of pirates in this set. So all these treasure tokens are getting sacrificed, and that is triggering all of your various things. And the signpost uncommon you should be looking at is Furnace Celebration, the enchantment for 1 red, which says when you sacrifice another permanent, you could pay 2. If you do, Furnace Celebration deals 2 damage to any target.
Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. This is the kind of deck. First of all, I already love Furnace Celebration decks. And second, a sacrifice theme sounds so good to me in Commander, especially since if you have a makeshift munitions in play, the enchantment that lets you sack artifacts or creatures to ping anything, people are just going to be less likely to be targeting you and your stuff because you're going to get value out of sacrificing it.
Yeah. And you can just sit there where you have your board, so presumably they're not super incentivized to attack, and you can just sacrifice on the last end step before your turn. That's really cool.
I know enough about Commander. Like I have played Commander, and I know enough about it to know that sitting there biding your time and having a good strategy is a very effective way to play the game.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I mean, Portent of Betrayal is in this set, right? You've got your 3 in a red, gain control of target creature till end of turn, attack them, and then feed it to your furnace. It's a good time for everybody.
For most everybody, yeah.
Well, for you at least.
Yeah.
But also, I wanted to bring up a card to you guys that you might not know about. Impulsive Pilfer, a 1/1 Goblin Pirate for 1 that when it dies, create a treasure token. And it's got Encore of 3 in red. So in a sacrifice deck, this is fantastic, right? You feed it to the furnace, you get your treasure token. Later on, you can Encore it, get 3 more 1/1s to just randomly attack or something, sacrifice them all, get more treasure tokens, and then just start going off.
That seems insane, right? Because I think when you read the Pilferer, you're like, okay, I get it, right? I pay 1/1, I get my treasure token, then I pay 4, and basically I get 3 more treasure tokens, or however many players are left treasure tokens. But you're not really thinking in terms of like this 1/1's going to get in or it's going to do anything. But if you can sacrifice those 1/1s for value, all of a sudden that becomes a big swing in your direction.
Exactly.
That's cool.
I don't know. I was just like looking at that, like, this is so cool. This looks so exciting.
I really like Encore. This seems like a really cool mechanic. And I can imagine wanting to keep someone alive so your Encore is bigger.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah. You want the one extra creature off your Encore. All right. What's the next color pair?
Yeah, the next one down is black, white, go wide tokens.
Okay.
So this is like one of my favorite archetypes. The uncommon here is Thassalis, the Reverent Medium, for 3 white black. She's a 3/4 cleric, and at the beginning of each end step, you create X 1/1 white spirit tokens with where X is the number of tokens you created this turn. So you're getting getting richer here, man. You cast your captain's call, you get 3 soldiers, and then at the end of turn you get 3 more spirits.
Okay,
it's just fantastic.
But it is the number that you created, not how many you control. It doesn't just double your counter. So it's like you have to keep being able to make them to take advantage. Okay. That's cool.
But it also says each end step, which means that's 3
it is?
steps.
Oh.
Yeah. So if you've got some way to make repeated tokens, or you're making tokens, and remember, treasures are also tokens. Right?
Oh, interesting.
So if you're making treasure tokens, or if you're making other things on other people's turns, you can just keep feeding your spirits and making more.
And the Encore are tokens, the Encore creatures are tokens too, right?
Encore creatures are tokens as well.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
And the partner pair here is Prava of the Steel Legion, which is 2 and a white for a 1/4. That's Cat Soldier. As long as it's your turn, creature tokens you control get +1/+4, and then you can pay 3 and a white to create a 1/1 white soldier creature token, which is another way to feed Thassalis. Or one of the coolest legends in this set, Nadir, the Agent of the Duskanel, which is 5 and a black for a 3/3 elf warrior. Whenever a token you control leaves the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on this guy. And when this creature leaves the battlefield, create a number of 1/1 green elf warrior tokens equal to its power. This card is baller.
That's insane. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, there's so many like things like Intangible Virtue, which give all your, it's an anthem for all your tokens. Things like Captain's Call and like all those various things that make instant speed soldiers. And then payoffs like Nadir's Nightblade, which is a 2 and a black 1/3. Whenever a token you control leaves the battlefield, each opponent loses a life and you gain a life.
When it leaves the battlefield? Okay.
Leaves the battlefield. So if you unsummon their token, they lose a life and you gain a life. If you crack a treasure, they lose a life, you gain a life. It's great.
Wow. And of course, whenever any of your tokens die, it'll trigger like normal.
I also like tokens in a multiplayer format. I think tokens are another way to kind of get around being bad against removal.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
That sounds like a sweet
favorite
one. Yeah.
I mean, Doom Traveler's in this set, right? Like,
is it really?
Yeah.
Start off small. Okay.
I do think that one thing worth noting as we look through these archetypes is synergy can excuse cards you wouldn't otherwise play. Like Doom Traveler is kind of like the last card I would look at playing in a commander format. Except once you put enough token payouts, all of a sudden it's like, yeah, no, Doom Traveler kind of makes the wheels go around.
That's right.
Exactly. And I mean, there's also cards like First Response, which is like a 3 and a white enchantment, which says at the beginning of each upkeep, if you lost life last turn, you create a 1/1 white soldier token, which is a good way to just...
If the last person attacked and then it's someone else's turn, you get a token.
Yeah.
That's great.
It's really, really clever way to just keep people off from attacking you all the time, but also to just kind of make sure that you're just keep feeding your token machine. It's great. So the next one is Blue-Red Pirates. This is like just straight up tribal theme. There's a lot of really good pirates in this set, but the main ones here are Breeches and Malcolm, who are the two. Well, actually, let's talk about the red-white. Where did I put it? And there's so many legends in this set. It's bananas. The red blue orc pirate. Captain Vargas Wrath, Vargas. They've even found colors for you, man.
Yeah.
And it's a 1/1 that when this guy attacks, pirates you control get +1/+1 until end of turn for each time that you've cast a commander from the command zone this game, which is
so you got to keep track of that too with cards like this.
Exactly. But since normally you'd be keeping track of how many times you've cast your commander for the purpose of tax, it's pretty easy to be able to keep track of that as well. So this is good in the 99 of the other two because you play it, and if you've been casting your partners a lot, then you can just keep going off of it. So the red one, for instance, is Breaches. Where did he go? Breaches is a Brazen Plunderer, 3 and a red for a 3/3 menace. Whenever one or more pirates you control deals damage to your opponent, exile the top card of each of their libraries. You can play those cards this turn, and you can spend mana as if it was mana of any color to cast those spells.
Okay.
That card is super fun for chaos type of commander, and to just keep the kind of card flowing. That's 3 cards you're looking at, right? And then his partner pair is Malcolm, the flying 2/2 Siren Pirate. Whenever one or more pirates you control deals damage to your opponents, you create a treasure token for each opponent dealt damage. So you attack everybody, you get 3 treasure tokens, and if you got both partners out, you're also looking at 3 extra cards off the top that you can then cast.
Using all your new treasure. That's pretty cool.
I also really like cards that play around with who you can attack. Like this gives you incentive to attack different people. The auras you mentioned earlier, I think there were the vows. Yeah, where it gives you it kind of forces action because I suspect that one thing that can happen is people might not either be too hesitant to do something or maybe gang up on someone, and all of these kind of push against that.
Exactly. And like one of the key uncommons here is Merchant Raiders, which is the 3 and a blue for a 2/4. Whenever Merchant Raiders or another pirate enters the battlefield under your control, tap up to 1 target creature. That creature doesn't untap during its controller's untap step for as long as you control Merchant Raiders. Not just next turn, but basically forever and anytime you play a pirate.
Wow.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
That's like kind of bananas.
Yeah, they did not mess around with these pirates. I would have assumed that these would be a lot more like cares about other pirates and stuff like that, but it just seems like these are just good cards.
Yeah. And like one of the best sweepers in the format is the Fiery Cannonade or whatever, which is it's a pyroclasm that hits each non-pirate creature.
Excuse me, Pyroclasm?
There you go. I appreciate that. Pyroclasm, yes. I don't know, it's super good. Then you've got black-green elves. This one I'm super excited about because I love playing me some elves. And the one here is Abomination of Llanowar, which is 1 black-green. Man, I messed up my mouse and then I rolled off the page and now I'm just super frustrated. Yeah, so
it's okay.
1 black-green for a star elf horror, vigilance and menace. And the Abomination of Llanowar's power and toughness are equal to the number of elves you control plus the number of elves in your graveyard. So it's like, all right, they died. I'm still big. I love that.
That's pretty cool.
And then the other ones that work for this are Numa, which is the black elf. Where does he go? Numa not Numa Thanami though.
Jiraga Chieftain, is that?
Yes. I was on the wrong tab. Of course I was. Man, this set is bananas. So, Numa Jiraga Chieftain, 2 and a green for 2/2. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you can pay XX. When you do, distribute X 1/1 counters among any number of target elves. So, this is a really, really good way to just use up a lot of your mana. You're already in green, so you've got a ton of mana, and you're making all your elves incredibly big.
Wow. And you can just do that every combat, just a huge mana sink there.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then
I like cards like this too, that once you play this, and let's say you have enough mana left over to pump another elf, they have to decide between killing this, which is enabling other elves, or just killing your now 6/6, which is a little more threatening on the board.
Yeah, totally. I love making people make that decision.
And because there are counters that don't go away at the end of turn, that choice becomes even harder, right? Because this guy's going to attack you for sure, but the partner, though, is Miara, Thorn of the Glade, which is a 1/2 for 2. These are both really cheap commanders, by the way. And this one says, when this or any other elf you control dies, you can pay 1 and 1 life. If you do, draw a card. Whoa. So all your elves are dying.
Whoa.
You lose a life, you draw a card. When you've got 40 life, that's not that bad.
Wow, that's great. And as you mentioned, these are both, 3 mana and 2 mana partner commanders. So, wow. Yeah, that's really sweet. I mean, that gives you a curve basically every game.
Exactly. And plus you can even start at 1 because they reprinted one of my favorite cards of all time, Findhorn Elves. So you've got your 1-drop elf right there that you can then go right into putting Miara out and then putting the Joraga out. And it just gets really, really crazy. Elves in this format seem really, really overpowered. Like there's a whole lot of really good ones. And
interesting to see them go back to the black-green elf combo from Lorwyn or wherever. That's kind of cool too. Yeah.
I mean, they did things like they reprinted Imperious Perfect, which is other elves you control get +1/+1. Immaculate Magistrate, which is put a 1/1 counter on target creature for each elf you control. So there's a whole lot of just kind of nutso things you can be doing here.
Imperious Perfect's in this set?
Yeah.
Oh, God. Yeah, because that's the one that makes elves too, right? Like one green tap, make a 1/1 elf.
One green tap, make an elf.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the real deal right there. All right.
It's a super good card. And plus, like the Pauper staple, like... let's see, there's Lizalana Bowmaster, which is whenever you cast an elf spell, you can have it do 2 damage to flying creatures. It's great. It's great.
Oh, yeah.
So then they've got blue-green graveyard stuff, which is like, I wish they'd been a little bit more creative with that, but it is effectively Encore. This is the Encore deck, because the signpost here is Arumi of the Dead Tide, 1 blue-black for a 1/4 Merfolk Wizard. And tap to exile cards from your graveyard equal to the number of opponents you have. Target creature in your graveyard gains Encore until end of turn. Encore cost is equal to its mana cost, which means all the creatures that you have that don't have Encore suddenly do.
Oh, that's absurd. I love that. And because the Encore cost is way, way more expensive than the mana cost on the regular Encore cards.
Yeah. And I mean, think about it. What if you do Encore with a Noxious Dragon, right? A 4 black flying 4/4. When it dies, you can destroy target creature with converted mana cost 3 or less. If you suddenly Encore that, that's disgusting.
That is
incredible. Oh, yeah, that's a board wipe right there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's super gross. And the partners here are the Ghost of Ramirez de Pietro, which is like one of the great Legends cards from that was, like a blue-black first striker pirate from a million years ago. This one says, it's a 2/3 for 3 that can't be blocked by creatures with toughness 3 or greater. And when Ghost of Ramirez de Pietro deals combat damage to a player, choose up to 1 target card in a graveyard that was discarded or put there from a library this turn. Put that card into its owner's hand. So if you were to sack a card or like discard a card during your combat, you could pull it back from the graveyard and put it into your hand.
I also find it very funny that literally last week we had TBS on and we talked about Legends and we talked about Ramirez de Pietro and now his ghost is coming back.
I forgot. Exactly. Oh, weird.
Well, also, this card works really well with Self-Mill, which is going to be the kind of theme that you're going to want in an Encore deck.
Yes, absolutely. And the black half here is one of the great long-time Legends that we've waited for forever. Tormod of Tormod's Crypt.
Actual Tormod.
Actual Tormod the Desecrator, 4/2 for 3 and a black. Whenever 1 or more cards leaves your graveyard, create a tapped 2/2 black zombie creature token. Now,
so it combos with Tormod's Crypt.
Yeah, so exactly. But I need to explain this because there's a couple of commander tricks here. First off, leaves your graveyard is a really, really clever way of saying, so first off, all your Encore guys, when they get exiled from your graveyard, they're leaving your graveyard.
Okay.
So you're making a zombie from that. Second, when your commander dies, on the way to going to the command zone, it stops in the graveyard. Ergo, stops in the graveyard, leaves your graveyard to go to the zone, you get a 2/2. So.
Okay.
There's like all these little side tricks, but basically it's a lot of like, hey, Encore, get a zombie. It's great.
Yeah, that's.
Right, I'm gonna go on a mini rant here now that we mentioned Tormod, because I know that in the set there's Tormod, there's like Nevinrall from Nevinrall's Disc. I actually kind of wish as a Magic player they didn't make cards for some of these super iconic things because the Tormod or Nevinrall in my mind is cooler than whatever a card could be. It's kind of like when you read a book and then it gets made into a TV show and they like have an actor that's cast that doesn't really fit your mental image. This might just be me. It's a very small thing. It's not really going to like bother me, but it does definitely like when I saw that they were making cards for some of these, I'm like, you know what? I kind of wish they just didn't. But that could just be.
Luis says never meet your heroes.
A little bit like
exactly.
When I was a kid, I imagined Tormod was this like planeswalking kind of like goblin in a hearse that's going around selling empty crypts at places. Just like, oh, you need a Tormod's crypt? You need a Tormod's crypt? Come to Tormod's cryptologist.
Yeah, right. And then now he's just some 4-2 jerk who just makes zombies.
It makes us a little sad. But they also gave us Hans from the Lurgoyf. And
from the Lurgoyf coin. I do like that, actually, the Saffron Olive invitational card.
Yeah, that one was one of the best designs I've seen in a really long time.
Wait, we got a Numa, we got a Saffron Olive, and I got a Vargas. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, where's my Shivan, man? Come on.
Yeah.
But and then let's see. Next, there's red-green big creatures. This is basically you're playing big CMCs, like you're just putting big dudes out. They're coming out. They're hitting people. The partner pair here of Hall and Elena from Innistrad. Helena here is a 3 and a green 3/4 with reach that says whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you can pay 2. If you do, this creature basically punches something, which is it deals damage equal to its power to target creature. And Elena, which is the 4 and a red 4/3 first striker that says tap, add an amount of red equal to the greatest power among creatures you control that enter the battlefield this turn. So those are both fine, but like your point is you're going to be coming here and ramping out and throwing big creatures into play. So
yeah, it seems pretty reasonable to me.
Yeah, I mean it does the job. Like
well, one of the cool things about ramp decks is they're not individually reliant, or they're not reliant on individual cards as much as some of the other archetypes in the format, where if maybe you kill your pirate payoff, your other dorky pirates are not looking as good. Ramp cards are just like, I'm going to play expensive cards that don't even necessarily have anything to do with each other.
Yep. They're just big. They hit you hard. Mm-hmm. And the red-green here is Tuya the Bearclaw, which is a 2/2 for 1 red-green. When Tuya Bearclaw attacks, it gets +X/+X, where X is the greatest power among other creatures you control. That's pretty solid. You attack with that, and you've got like a 6/6 in play. Suddenly you've got an 8/8 commander attacking. Commander damage is a real thing, and you can just kind of go to town. And this set's got just more than its share of gigantic green and red creatures, like Scaled Behemoth, a 6/7 hexproof for 6.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
That was the job.
Hexproof.
Hexproof seems especially good here.
Why do they need to make hexproof?
Honestly, I think hexproof in a 4-player format is like acceptable. Because look, this thing's big, but like other people are going to be able to assemble enough stuff to take it down eventually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess there's not as many sweepers as there are in normal Commander, right? Because I'm assuming there's not a whole ton of them in this set, or
there are quite a few sweepers in the set. Like Feast of Succession, which is one of the cool ones. It's a 4 and 2 black for a sorcery. All creatures get -4/-4 until end of turn, and you become the Monarch.
Oh, yeah, wow.
Sick.
That's dope.
That's pretty sick.
I want to do that.
It's got some real Red Wedding vibes.
Yeah. It's Seb McKinnon artwork, man. Like, what do you want? This is
he does a great job.
It's crazy town is happening. And they put Austere Command, which is one of the best cards in Commander. This 4 white, choose 2, destroy all artifacts, destroy all enchantments, destroy all creatures, convert mana cost 3 or less, destroy all creatures, convert mana cost 4 or greater. Just fantastic card. Like, first pick it every time. And then let's see, next down the line is green-white 1/1 counters. So green-white got the good classic, just put your dice out and pour them onto the table. They use Hamza, the Guardian of Arishan, 4 green-white 5/5 elephant. It costs 1 less to cast for each creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it. Creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each creature you control with a 1/1. That's pretty fantastic, especially because in Commander, you're going to have a lot of +1/+1 counters just all over the place. It's a very, very common archetype. It's very just lots of cards just come out and have sprays of dice all over. It's fun.
Right. Yeah. The old dump the dice box on the table mechanic.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. I mean, the partner pairs here, like especially super buff that, like Slurk. Slurk is like this weird Slurk the all ingesting, which is just fun to say. 5 and a green for an ooze 0/0. Comes into play with 5 1/1 counters on it. When it or another creature you control dies, if it had a 1/1 counter on it, you put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control that already had a +1/+1 counter on it. So this is kind of helping that theme out. And then Alharu. Alharu is the white one, which is Alharu Solemn Ritualist, a 3/3 for 4 and a white. When it enters, you put a 1/1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures. And when a non-token creature with a 1/1 on it dies, you create a 1/1 spirit. So you're basically incentivized to put as many tokens as you can all over the place, and also to kind of, when your token guys die, you just get 1/1 flying spirit tokens, which is pretty great.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, like this seems like a very just generic, solid value thing. The thing is, though, the thing that makes this work is this 3/5 common called Anointer of Valor. It's 3/5 for 5 and a white for an angel that flies. So 3/5 flying for 6. Whenever a creature attacks, you can pay 3. When you do, put a +1/+1 counter on that creature. So it's repeatable counters that you can just be dumping onto things.
So, but you can also do this to opposing creatures?
Yeah, you can do this to your opponent when they're attacking somebody else.
Okay, but it's expensive at 3
I can just imagine someone attacking a 2/2 flyer into a 3/3 flyer, hoping you'll put a counter on, and you're like, I'm going to pass this time.
Yeah, it's going to be a no for me, dog.
Nice thought, though. I appreciate how you're thinking.
Yeah, they look over.
Oh, sorry. I had plans for that, man.
Yeah. Okay.
And the last of these archetypes is blue-green Cascade. Simic is already by far and away the strongest color in Magic, in Commander. And you've got also
you don't have to say Commander. You could just say Magic, because the way things have been going, Simic has gotten the lion's share recently.
It really has.
And the Simic partner pair here, or Simic Uncommon, is Emoti, Celebrant of Bounty for 3 blue-green for 3/1 Naga Druid. Cascade, so it's a 5-cost Cascade, which is great. And spells you cast with converted mana cost 6 or greater have Cascade by default, which is amazing.
That's incredible.
See, this is the kind of archetype that I can get behind in this format, which is funny because this one, of course, Simic would get it. But giving all your spells Cascade that's what I want to be doing.
Seriously.
Think about it. You throw down a 7 casting cost Sifter Worm, and suddenly you've got a free Cascade boost off of that. Sure, I'll take it all day.
Ridiculous.
And then the 2 partners here are Brinolin the Moonkraken, which is not a commander you're going to be casting a lot because it costs 6 and 2 blue for a 6/8 Kraken. And when it enters the battlefield, or whenever you cast a spell with converted mana cost 6 or greater, you can return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand, which is to say every big creature you cast is a mono war.
My God. Like, the only issue I have with Simic at this point is that it's just too good, and I'm never going to get it because everybody's going to fight for it, right? Like, basically. I get to Cascade and Mana War everything. Like, I get to ramp and draw cards. Like, what am I missing here? This is all I want to do.
The Simic theme is all your cards draw cards and do other things.
Yes,
right?
That is. Yes, yes. Cantrip everything.
Speaking of cantrips, the other half of the partner pair there is Gilrana, Caller of Wirewood. 2 and a green for 1/2. Tap to add a green to your mana pool. Okay. When you spend this mana to cast a spell with converted mana cost 6 or greater, draw a card.
God, really?
Because
so it really is rewarding you directly for ramping, which is what it also does.
It's so dumb.
That is absurd. Dumb. That is absurd. Yeah. Oh, man. And that's one of the commanders? I mean, or legends? Wow. Okay.
And the thing is, there's a whole cycle of the other legends here called like familiars, which are, as long as you're, like, for instance, Anara Wolfid Familiar, which is a 3 and a green partner for 4/4. As long as it's your turn, commanders you control are indestructible. You know, like, there's a whole bunch of these. I mean, remember, every partner can be mixed and matched. You don't need to take the one specific for your archetype, because a lot of these are just so good together, and they do such bananas things together that you can then go and just make some ridiculous combos out of all the cards in the set. There's the most modular draft in a long time.
That is super sweet. Yeah. Well, I'm sold on Simic. I want to try Simic, and I want to try the blue-black
the Encore deck.
Deck. Yeah, that sounds really
in a shocking twist. Those would be where I would start too.
Yeah. What about you, Shivam? Which color pair do you want to try the most?
Oh, well, the one that I'm most excited about are either black-green elves or the
red-white
black-white tokens.
Oh, black-white. Okay.
It was red-white until I said Ors are bad, and then I just rained on the parade.
I'm like, okay, I won't.
That's good.
Generic tips, though, I want to give to the listeners who might not be familiar with this. This format is slow, right? Commander is definitely slower than you expect. So one of the things you should be aiming for whenever you're drafting is taking as many mana rocks as you can as soon as you can.
Okay.
There's diamonds, which are like the 2 mana that tap for a color. There's the Dreamstone Hedron, which is 6 mana tap for 3 colorless. All of these different, like Burnished Heart, which lets you ramp for lands, Armillary Spear, Arcane Signet, tap to add 1 mana of any color in your commander's identity. Your commander's color identity is the color in its casting cost. So this is basically a mana rock for all the colors in your partner pairs or in your 3-color commander or whatever. Take as many rocks as you can. Absolutely.
Okay. Any other broad advice?
The other thing is, again, don't be afraid of high mana costs because, again, the game will go for a long time and you will have a lot of mana rocks if you're doing it right because there's a lot of common ones too. And you will be able to cast all your spells, but make sure that your curve starts around like 3 mana, 3 to 7 or something like that. Don't worry too much if you don't have a lot in the 1 to 2s because there's going to be a lot of like auras or like a couple of these mana elves, but there's not going to be a lot that you're going to be doing at the 1 and 2 mana slot. So if you don't have it, don't worry about it. But value things like Farhaven Elf, which is when it comes to the battlefield, search your library for a basic land of any type. That is incredibly good. Fertilid in this set is incredibly good.
Okay.
And the rares in this are just like all kinds of weird bananas cards. And they do weird things. Like, did you see Wheel of Misfortune?
Oh, I did see that when it was spoiled. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, this is one of the most bonkers cards I've seen in a long time. 2 and a red for a sorcery. Each player secretly chooses a number 0 or greater. Then all players reveal the number simultaneously and determine the highest and lowest numbers. Wheel of Misfortune deals damage equal to the highest number to each player who chose the highest number. And then each player who didn't choose the lowest number discards their hands and draw 7. So it's like a whole mini game that you end up having to psychologically play with the other 3 people at your desk. And
do you think Magic players ever like these like optimization games that involve game theory and naming numbers?
I mean, I'm just saying, there's this whole trend among us of people playing games where they hide who they are, and maybe they might enjoy cards like Wheel of Misfortune.
Wheel of Misfortune's very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sure that there's other cards like that in the set that are kind of, they're kind of nonsense, right? They're like, hey, let's, it's like this little mini game or this sub stuff, but you know what they are? They're fun, right? And that is really going to be the point of this set. More along the lines of like Conspiracy or something like that, where it's a little bit of a different take on the draft format. And don't worry, you'll still have your expert level set waiting for you. A cube will be up or something where you can, do all that stuff. It's okay to let go and just try to do some crazy fun stuff in a format like this, especially one that's not going to be around forever, that you'll probably only get to draft a time or two anyway. So, I say go big or go home, play your Wheel of Misfortune and just see what happens. And, just I in these formats, I think that like you actually can learn something, as a hardcore limited spike, right? You can actually take away something by letting your guard down a little bit and doing some crazy stuff. And again, we'll be here. Draft formats will be here when it's all done.
Yeah, I mean, trust me. At the end of the day, it's about fun.
Right.
So,
like your Zendikar partners, your Zendikar party will still be around tomorrow. But until then, dude, think about it. You've got Yurlok. Have you seen Yurlok of the Scorched Thrash? The black, red, green rare?
No.
Which says a player losing unspent mana causes that player to lose that much life.
It brings back
and then pay 1 and tap. Each player adds black, red, and green to their mana pool. Brings mana burn back.
I did. Right. So it's 1 tap. Each player adds green, black, red. Yeah. Yeah. And it has vigilance. So you can do that. Also, like, little, black, green, red with vigilance is like pushing it, but whatever. This is funny, right? Like this is a throwback.
I mean, the idea of then just forcing people to just burn themselves with mana is so delightful to me.
Yeah.
And I don't know, man. This set just looks like such a blast to draft. And there's so many just insane, like they put Rings of Brightheart in here, which is a 3 casting cost artifact that says when you activate ability, if it's not a mana ability, you can pay 2, and if you do, copy that ability. So activating ability, copying it means that you can just get some really nutso things going on.
Yeah, and
scroll rocks.
Yeah, there's a lot of these cards here too that are meant right for commander players to be able to put in their deck after the draft's over too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, Vampiric Tutors in this set. That's not going to do you any good.
There you go. Yeah, I'm against tutors in Commander, but that's just me.
I don't think it's going to be a fun time I wouldn't play it in this, but like you do want to play something like Kodama of the East Tree, right? Which is the 6/6 that whenever another permanent enters a battlefield under your control, if it you can put another permanent with equal or lesser converted mana cost from your hand onto the battlefield.
Right. Yep.
Which is
it's like Cascade from your hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, God, this set's just got so much stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying Monarch, man. Monarch is going to be so much fun.
Okay.
Like you definitely want to do.
Yeah, I'm super looking forward to it as well. And I don't think I'm going to get to do it very much, but I'm going to try it out on Magic Online when it goes up, which I think is on the 20th. I think it's in like a week, a little over a week from when we're recording. But it should be sweet. And let us know. Let us know what you're excited about. Of course, which of the archetypes or partners or pairs or any questions you have about the rules or anything else like that. You can send us on all the normal ways on social media. But we should wrap up the show here. Any last thoughts, Shivam, about the set or anything?
One thing I wanted to just bring up before we go is that a lot of people have been playing Magic over webcams lately. One of the things I've been very big on advocating, like especially with Commander, we've been playing a lot of webcam Commander. Mm-hmm. If you want to play this Commander Legends and you have a box, you can play 6 packs and make a sealed deck and then be able to play that with your friends online and still get the limited experience.
Totally.
Or if you're like BDM and me and you're completely crazy, you can do a full sealed box Commander
oh my God,
deck.
that's amazing.
Boxing
That's insane with this set. Okay, I like where you're going, Shivam. That seems sweet.
But seriously though, this set is going to be such a delightful change of pace from like normal draft for most folks. It's just it's like a vintage cube. It shows up once in a while. It does things you don't expect, and then you have a great time.
Yeah.
And if it brings people to my format, I'm happy. If it doesn't, that's fine. I'm glad you got to play something different.
Well, that's great. Now, I did want to ask you if people want to find you, on social media or wherever, in case they do want to know more about Commander or the things you're up to, where can they find you?
So you can find me on Twitter at GearUpWhereHeGears. I'm very active over there. I talk a lot. And because I'm a member of the Commander Advisory Group, I am happy to answer any questions about Commander or rules or anything like that. And also, I put out a podcast every week called Casual Magic, which you can find basically everywhere but YouTube, where I talk to people about things that may or may not be Magic related. Like Marshall came on and we talked about watches for a while, and it was a lot of fun.
Totally. And so I'll put links in the show notes to Shivam's Twitter as well as the Casual Magic podcast if you want to check that out. He does great interviews, with people in and around Magic. And like he mentioned, I came on and did an episode with him, was it a month ago or something like that?
Time has no meaning.
Yeah, I agreed. And you can be sure to check that out as well. Shivam, thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time and giving the set primer for our listeners here. You added a really great angle that Luis and I would have had a hard time putting all the pieces together on. I'll tell you that.
I mean, to be honest, I'm a little sad that I got to participate in this because I don't get to listen to you guys try to figure out how to make this work.
Yeah, I tell you, we probably saved you a lot of yelling because you would have said, but you didn't even talk about this. And like, we would have been like, whoops, maybe we should have had an expert on, which is exactly what we did. So, So I just want to tell you the kind of play you can expect. If you saw, for instance, the PPR, the pre-release for this set, there's a planeswalker, a black planeswalker called Teversat, which is like a planeswalker with partner pair. And it's got the ultimate, which is take control of every commander, right? So even if it's in the command zone. So you get all the commanders to control. And put all commanders from the command zone into the battlefield under your control. So Graham was playing it, and he had Teversat up to like 11. And then Ben Wheeler casts Confiscate, which is, control magic for any permanent on Teversat's, and then takes him over to use his ultimate to take everybody else's commander, which he then sacrifices to Teversat's ability. That is the sort of banana stuff you can expect from Commander Legends, which is I steal your commander to kill everybody else's commander to draw a billion cards. Yeah.
And then it's amazing.
That is the dream. There's no doubt about it. Well, Shivam, thanks again for coming on the show. We really appreciate you taking the time. And again, we'll put the link in the show notes to your Twitter and to where people can find Casual Magic, the podcast that you do. over there as well. That is going to do it for the show this week. If you want to find us on social media, I'm Marshall_LR and Luis is LSV. You can find everything related to the podcast over at lrcast.com. And don't forget that the show is brought to you by Channel Fireball. You can check out Channel Fireball for all your Magic needs. You can even get CFB Pro, which gives you access to premium content. There's still content that's on the free side as well, but if you want to get some of the more in-depth articles, deck guides, that type of thing, you'll want to get CFB Pro. If you do sign up for it, make sure you use the affiliate code LR. It helps out the show and lets them know that we sent you over there. With that, we'll see you next week.
Honestly, I don't think I can really top confiscating a planeswalker that steals all commanders, and so I think I'm going to call it a show.